So we're seeing Iran arm Russia with drones. We're seeing NATO countries give tanks to Ukraine to help them fight back. How long does this war go on in this fashion? Do you see an end? Is it at all possible to guess wisely?
Well, first of all, the war in Ukraine has been going on not just for 10 months, but for 9 years, since 2014. Okay. So let's be clear. The United States, the Europeans weren't involved in it. The Ukrainians have been fighting it every day. So they certainly, the Russian appetite to fight in Ukraine shouldn't be measured in months. It's measured in generations, frankly, first of all. Second of all, I can see over the coming months that we might achieve a stalemate on the ground in Ukraine where the Russians can't make up any territory on the ground, but the Ukrainians increasingly are stuck because the Russians are dug in and have better defenses. But that's not an end to the war. We've already seen that when the Russians get stuck on the ground and pushed back, what are they doing? Every day, every week, they're attacking critical infrastructure. They just blew up an apartment building in Dnipro, and dozens of Ukrainian civilians were killed. This war is not going to be over.
Zelensky seems to think he can win. Can he?
Ukraine is now been invited to become a full member of the European Union. Ukraine has become one of the most powerful militaries on the European continent. Ukraine has captured the imagination of the West and is driving NATO closer together, the G7. So in those very real ways, the Ukrainians have already won. But 44 million Ukrainians have had their lives destroyed. This will be the most tragic geopolitical event of their lives, for their entire lives going forward. 8 million refugees, over 100,000 casualties on the Ukrainian side. Those numbers are only going up. And so, I mean, what's really sad is that the West ignoring this issue, the G0 world that we've had now for almost a decade, well, the Ukrainians are paying the ultimate price for that. And we in the West have to appreciate that it is the Ukrainians that are suffering because we have abdicated leadership for so long. We've allowed Putin to believe that he would be ignored as he kept taking larger and larger chunks of the country.
In your estimate, is Putin as much in control as he has been in the past, or is his control over the Russian state a little weaker now because he hasn't been able to win militarily?
I don't see it. I mean, Russia's economy has contracted by 3.54% in the first year. Ukraine's economy has contracted by 40% in the first year. You don't see the demonstrations on the ground in Russia. They had a few for a few weeks after they called up 300,000 reservists. That was it, right? The special recruitment. You know, the amount of state propaganda, the complete control of the media. Russia's not, it's not the United States, it's not India, it's not a democracy. Putin has an iron fist. And there is really no credible challenge to Putin in the near term. We've seen about 20 mid-level oligarchs commit suicide by jumping out of windows over the last year. If you're in Russia, you know what it means to go against Putin. And not many people are willing to have the courage to do that.
You have a big report in India coming out soon. Give me a sense of where you're sitting at the Eurasia Group, your reading of the India story.
Well, at a time that the emerging markets are taking a real hit because of climate change and supply chain challenges and the war and everything, the pandemic, and at a time when democracies, the big word has been democracies are moving backwards. They're all under siege. India is one country where the sitting leader is consistently over 60%. He's much more popular than his party, and that has allowed him to drive a number of legislative victories over the course of his first couple terms. And it also means that as we look forward, there's very little challenge to him in the country. There's no democracy that has more consolidated leadership today in the world than India. Mexico under AMLO is probably number 2, but constitutionally, AMLO can only have one term.